Hey class, and welcome to our third and final introductory video lecture for GEB 3213, Writing in Business. In this video lecture, we'll discuss business diction best practices, and for those of you who are not familiar with the term diction, it's just a highfalutin word for word choice. So let's dive into our tips for choosing our words effectively in a business and workplace communication context. And our first tip is this: use polite, casual, specific language. If we think of our word choice like a dress code, we want to opt for the business casual option. We don't want to be too informal in our language. We don't want to write in the sort of t-shirt and jeans or athleisure equivalent of communication. But we also don't need to get so formal that we feel like we're wearing a tuxedo or a ball gown. Instead, keep it polished, but pretty comfortable. Okay? To make this injunction more concrete, let's take a look at two sample messages, one of which does not follow this advice and one of which does. So on the left here, we've got a message that is excessively formal, that is excessively academic in its tone. The amount of expenses reimbursed to a claimant shall be reduced by any amount that the claimant receives from a collateral source, etc., etc. That, like I said before, excessively formal, excessively academic, that is the tuxedo and ball gown equivalent of writing. Instead, we want to opt for language that looks more like the example on the right. If you get a payment from another source, the government will reduce its payment to you by the amount you get from that source. If you already got payments from the government and later get another payment for the same expenses, you must pay back what the government paid you. Now that still sounds professional. We've got complete sentences. It sounds intelligent, etc., but it also sounds conversational. Notice the prevalence of the word you in that language. It makes you feel like somebody's talking to you in a business meeting, and that's the kind of tone that you want to aim for. Next tip is this: you want to avoid cliches, slang, and jargon in your writing. In other words, you want to avoid writing in business-ese, which is, of course, very tempting for many of us, particularly early on in our careers. You want to avoid writing or examples like what we have on the left here. We are pleased to announce the release of another wave of functionality in our operational development. This transformative release will leverage the dynamism of earlier releases while optimizing integration with our client-facing software. That is chock-a-block with jargon. Very few of us will know what it means. And in fact, I'm not convinced that the writer actually knew what that text means. Instead, you want to opt for plainer, clearer, more conversational language, like the example that we see on the right. We recently updated our systems to better integrate with our client-facing software. Pretty much anybody can understand what that second example is trying to say, and it's more concise. It is superior in every single way. Next tip: you want to be earnest. And as part of the process of being earnest, you want to banish sarcasm from your written communication. Let's be real. Sarcasm is difficult to interpret even in verbal communication when you've got vocal tone and facial expression and all these other cues to help you identify somebody's meaning. In written communication, sarcasm is almost impossible to interpret. So please, please, please save yourself some headaches and banish sarcasm from your writing. On the left here, we've got an example of a text that makes excessive use of sarcasm. And as a result, it could either be read as kind of jokey and fun, or it can be read as incredibly harsh and very, very mean. All right? Terry, I guess that since you sent me this request on Monday, even though Monday was a holiday, your filing is more important than what I am working on. After all, how busy could I be? Please see the attached and please read it carefully. If you still have questions, read it again before you take any more of my time. If absolutely necessary, we can go through the form line by line until you figure it out. Again, that text is subject to profound potential misinterpretation. Maybe the writer intends this message to be really fun, but the reader might interpret it as extremely mean. And so to avoid that potential confusion, just keep your writing earnest and emulate the example on the right. Hi, Terry. Please see the attached forms, which I think will answer your questions. If you still need help with the filing, we can make an appointment to review the forms together. Please note, however, that I'm very busy with my own Q2 filing, so I may be slow to respond. Okay? Far more easy to interpret, and therefore far superior to our original example. And lastly, avoid trying to sound smart. Be yourself, but be your best self. Now, I know what it's like when you're at the start of your career. You're surrounded by folks who don't always take you super seriously, and a lot of times you yourself feel like kind of an imposter. All right? I get it. And under those circumstances, it's only normal, it's only natural to want to adopt a very official sounding, jargon-laden style of communication. But resist that temptation. Adopting that highfalutin, jargon-laden, official sounding, excessively formal style of communication will not, in fact, make you sound more competent or more like an expert. Instead, it will emphasize your very lack of experience and expertise. The best thing that you can do to convey your skill set to the world is to communicate what you have to contribute plainly and simply. People understand what it is that you're trying to say. They'll respect that. People don't respect the jargon. They don't respect the excessively or artificially formal language. They respect the real contributions. Okay? So just get comfortable with that plain conversational language and rest assured that people will be more impressed by a good idea expressed simply than by any idea expressed in jargon-laden, overblown language. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of this, our third and final introductory video lecture for GEB 3213. Thank you for watching all three of these video lectures.